Give us an indication of the news out from Ghana when it comes to the MPC announcement and also the inflation scenario that is playing out. Do you think that we saw market movement with regards to this?
Well, yeah, in terms of the MPC, well, last week they revised the policy rate up by about 100 basis points, and that was largely unexpected. And we were at best expecting a 50 basis point upward movement. But that said, I mean, the signs were written on the wall more or less, because we've seen weaknesses in the from the fiscal front. We've seen the currency also quite fall a bit sharply, and then inflation has also been creeping up quite sharply as well, as we saw last week with the January release. So the movement was, even though it was unexpected, we know that it's justified, and that largely has been analyst sentiment around here. In terms of reflections on the market, and we haven't seen any other banks really move or try and markedly revise their rates quite sharply, though. But what we've been seeing on the fixed income front is, at least from the government side, we've seen yields creeping up. In fact, over the past couple of weeks, that towards the lower end has exceeded 11% through to the 2-year, which is about 12. So that has started creeping up, and that is a cause for.
So, Nii, I mean, let's just touch on the interest rate scenario, because it's sitting at 13.5%. As you mentioned, in fact, a 100 basis point rise. But when you look at the January inflation number, it only came in at 8.7% year on year, from around 8.6% year on year in December. Clearly not a massive move that came through in January, but as you said, the market says that it's pretty much warranted. So a very aggressive move when it comes to monetary policy. Is there not a concern like there is on a global level, where we really need to worry about economic growth and the impact of very high interest rates?
Yeah, well, yes, the central bank here also has those concerns about growth and the like, but they are keeping their eye a lot more on inflation this time around, especially as it's an election year. On the growth side, yes, the process looks somewhat a bit less dim. But that said, it's not bleak if you're comparing it to the global or even other regional players. We're expecting real GDP growth to be about 8.5% for the year 2012. And that would largely be driven by mostly election spending and a number of other factors. So we don't think that is too much of a huge concern.
All right, let's now move on to corporate news. We had Guinness Ghana out with some results as well, and we saw the first quarter numbers increasing by 22% on the turnover front relative to what we saw the previous year. A very good set of numbers, double-digit growth that is coming through. Is there an expectation that these numbers can actually rally further?
Yes, definitely. Guinness, by the way, is coming back from a period where they saw their volumes shrink quite sharply, and that was as a result of some regulatory issues, particularly to do with taxes, particularly to do with utility tariffs as well. And that more or less has all been filtered through the system now. They've been able to take up price or increase their prices, and with the improving macroeconomic conditions, at least for 2011, that more or less seems to be filtering into the numbers now. So the performance, yes, is strong, and we believe that it would continue for the full year, for the rest of the year. For them. Their year ends in June, by the way.
Nii, what's also interesting is pretty much the same scenario that we're actually seeing across Africa. Inflationary pressures coming through, so the cost of raw material, and then also utility increases is coming to the fore as well. The company said that it's going to ensure that efficiency is improved throughout the period. Do you think that it can actually be done, or do you think that we could actually see a bit of pressure on this front?
I think that more of the latter. I think that there would be some pressure on it. But, I mean, any further increases that are going to have to be done, the utility agencies would definitely need to have to justify it somewhat. Over here in Ghana, at least, any time it comes up, there's a very active dialogue between the associations or the umbrella industrial bodies to try and justify it, and they demand, I mean, a good and premium service of sorts. If that doesn't happen, it's going to be very difficult to convince people to accept such huge increases.
Okay, so let's touch on the overall stock market performance as well. Would you say, Nii, are we going to start seeing a bourse that is much stronger going forward. It seems on the economic front perspective, things are still very much intact. Do you think this is going to filter through into the earnings and thus into the equity market?
Yes, we believe that is going to be the case. We are still yet to see quite a number of full-year releases. There are a number of them that haven't come in yet, but expectations, at least from what we've been seeing, at least on the banking front, which is the most active part of the Ghanaian stock market, we expect that to be quite strong. We're expecting also some strong numbers from the consumer goods front as well. And all indications are that it's going to be a strong year. Mind you, on the government side, because of the election spending and infrastructure spending and a number of other things, that things are generally expected to be a bit more bullish. The only challenge would be to keep our fiscal books in check.
Let's also touch on Total. I know that this specific company actually ensured that the market did relatively well last week. Looking at Total, do you think that this is one of the stocks we should be looking at as an investment option?
Yes, it's the largest oil marketer in the country by assets, also to a large extent also by the branch network. It's quite well diversified as well. It doesn't just operate on the white oil, but also supplies some key mines and other key agencies. Yes, it's a looker. It's one that we should keep an eye on. But from our point of view, the price is becoming a bit full, and the upside potential is reducing quite sharply. So if anything else, you should get in early before you lose out on any further upside potential.